My name is Fred Corson. I am completing the SLAS 706 final project, which is the summary, reflection, documentation, and reflection. The weekly revision, being that I'm an undergrad, a business undergrad, and I'm a bit more familiar with some of the terms and the concepts that have been mentioned during SLAS, it has helped me to be able to pivot, make changes, and do things as necessary in reference to those who maybe are education majors or philosophy majors and may not be as familiar with some of the intricacies of what we've been talking about. Basically, my weekly revisions, first of all, started off by a means of polling students and other teachers and professionals to try to get a better understanding and a clarification as to the various aspects of my final project. Now, my final project was centered around one of two things. Number one, ISPs providing free or subsidized internet access at residential homes of socioeconomically deprived students. Number two, the installation of community-sponsored Wi-Fi systems, whereas individuals, businesses, and other people may be able to access the internet. Now, the ongoing question is internet access actually considered a fundamental human right? Some cases it is, in some cases it's not argued that, but in Article 17 of the World Health Federation it is argued that yes, it is an international human right for humans to have internet access due to the free exchange of information, i.e. particularly that pertaining to health and knowledge regarding systems of wellness. But my first initial project was just to simply do a subsidized internet service poll, and I really found out quickly after completing my poll that the twofold system was probably going to be the one that would be most apropos for this project. Other sources that affected my weekly revisions were such things as my weekly articles. I really tried to research articles that were interesting and provided statistics that helped support the reasoning for my projects. And some of these statistics are that up to 30% of all students of children of school age do not have internet access. The government does provide a $9.75 a month subsidy to help these families, but many of them do not take advantage of it. As I was stating with my weekly progress, I also have to be honest that during some weeks there was not as much progress. I was busy with doing the class material and class work and didn't focus as much on actual revising or changing of my project. But when things during our weekly reading that were very appropriate to my project took place, I then looked at those, helped to familiarize myself with them and utilize them within my project, my Canvas. Now, utilizing assumptions and validations, there was several ways that I was able to make assumptions and in turn validate these assumptions within my project. Firstly, as a teacher, I can see the children not completing their assignments firsthand. Secondarily, I can also see from my school that is taking place overall, then talking to teachers in overall the overall United States, that this is a fact, that this is happening. And the governor's stay-at-home order stopped libraries from being open. Many of these kids were using libraries, and therefore they did not have internet access at home because of socioeconomic reasons, et cetera, et cetera. And our district sent out Wi-Fi to enable buses within the community. Libraries strengthened their Wi-Fi signals so people could sit in their cars to access the internet. And they're great and everything, but the families who are not able to travel to meet these buses or to drive to these parking lots generally are not going to be able to use the internet anyways. Many assumptions can be made, and the validity of the options that our school districts have put into place are simply not meeting the needs of our students. It's meeting the needs of some of them, but not all of them. Now, gaining the buy-in, or you would say the sponsorship and the funding, obviously that's a highly ambiguous process right now in this point, but I progressed through my project as one of my main idea, where I faced the means of actually how to pay for something like this. While there are government subsidies that exist, they're simply not realistic and viable, and legislation and fundings change all the time. Well, what I found out is that as I altered my ideas, went back to re-include the idea of community Wi-Fi systems with ISPs and local home internet providers, I found alternate ways of possibly being able to pay for these services, such as considering a local 1-cent option sales tax. However, a lot of people are not involved in those kind of things and support them. Well, then the next best option would have been funding the Wi-Fi systems by actually selling the internet access to business and homeowners, those people who are not socioeconomically disadvantaged, in order to help pay for the ongoing maintenance and operations of the system. As I worked through my transitions, I saw different iterations of my project, and the ones that became the most beneficial were the ones that offered advice and validity as to the fundamental necessity of ISP programs at homes as well as community Wi-Fi systems. If more time was allowed, I do believe I would be able to drill down my project idea, go through further iterations and research, and honestly, I could probably work my interactions into my project that I was not able to based upon the fact that I have more extensive studies that need to be performed. Now, there has been community Wi-Fi systems, such as in Goose Creek, South Carolina, and it's shown that it was successful. At the same time, it was not successful. There definitely needs to be more studies, and also these studies need to be done in areas that are more geographically dense in population. My elaboration of my ideas upon center design is I believe that my project works well around the use of user-centered design. It's a two-part approach. It acts sort of like reverse engineering in that you take the design and you base it upon a problem, and then you think back to a solution for it. And again, those two things were the home subsidized internet access and to community Wi-Fi systems with the possibility of alternative revenue streams. Over time, as I was utilizing conversations and observations of individuals that I was polling and speaking to, during my research on a weekly basis, I found out that trying to find articles that are applicable to cooperative ISP companies and community Wi-Fi companies is of importance. I mentioned during my pitch video that I had previously provided that socioeconomically disadvantaged students within the internet age, the data age right now, is only going to increase. It's only going to get worse. How I actually created this within an agile framework is I created the canvas and I started to think in a matter of scrums. Basically, in an agile fashion of completion towards this project. How would individuals or companies or businesses go by providing revenue towards the operation of community Wi-Fi systems rather than just simply installing them and maintaining them solely for students' use? I actually don't think I dived deep enough into start creating a list of scrums or steps that I could progress through on a weekly basis, time being a factor, and many other things. The measuring impact, I would say, of my whole project is that I had the possibility to ask questions and to try to measure interest within the community from the students, the educators, and community members that I polled on the validity of my project. The students didn't have much to say about it. They're kids. But as for likewise, they were like, well, can I play games on it, et cetera, et cetera. But my fellow educators were absolutely 100% in favor of Wi-Fi systems and subsidized IP in the homes of students without internet access. But in order to truly understand the impact of this, we're going to have to look at communities where they have been installed, and likewise, we're going to have to look at those systems that were installed and how they were used during this pandemic. If we experience a second wave of the pandemic, we could also do a measure to measure the impact based upon the statistics from those and bounce it off of the first pandemic. However, it's just going to take time. And while I don't fully understand and comprehend everything having to do with the topic of iterative reinforcement, what I can ascertain is that the method of using facts and statistics to reinforce your ideas and methods is the best way to do things. In relation to a lean startup, iterative reinforcement makes the most sense by gathering data from previous businesses or experience of previous businesses and case studies where you can learn from their mistakes and look at what they've done to help you as a lean startup to be more successful and possibly go around some of those corners that they created for themselves. In observation and questions, I would have to say that the main question that I have regarding this process is looking into the actual case study where the processes of agile development and iterative reinforcement has been used, and where they were put into place in libraries and organizations that might best help to explain or how to apply in the field these experiences. By using those opinions of educators, community members, and the people themselves, the socioeconomically disadvantaged. How, what, when, where, why can we be of benefit to them in the manner of home-based ISP systems as well as community-based Wi-Fi systems. We are opening up a lot of Pandora's boxes by even putting these systems into place, but at the same time, we would be opening many more Pandora's boxes by not doing so. The future will be held in itself. What takes place will take place, but overall, I think there's validity to my project idea. There's a need to my project idea that is absolute, and if we do not pay attention to this as Americans, as educators, and as information professionals, we are disservicing these kids, and that is not something we should be doing. Thank you.